Welcome to Monterey County Pops Pros Teach. I'm Carl Christensen, the music director and conductor of Monterey County Pops. Our orchestra of fully professional musicians presents free concerts of pops and patriotic music throughout Monterey County. During the school year, we visit local schools and conduct clinics and workshops for student musicians in the afternoon. And in the evening, we perform together in a free concert for their community. We are committed to mentoring young musicians, and since we have not been able to visit schools since March, we have created this series of instrumental clinics. They will be broadcast once a week on Comcast Channel 24, and they will also be posted on our website, montereycountypops.org, along with downloadable exercises, tips, and other print material. Bienvenido a Monterey County Pops Pros Teach. Soy Carl Christensen, director musical de Monterey County Pops. Nuestra orquesta de músicos totalmente profesionales presenta conciertos gratuitos de música ligera y patriótica en todo el condado de Monterey. Durante el año escolar visitamos escuelas y realizamos clínicas y talleres para estudiantes músicos por la tarde, y por la noche presentamos un concierto conjunto para su comunidad. Para nosotros, la educación musical de jóvenes músicos es muy importante, y como no hemos podido visitar escuelas desde marzo, hemos creado esta serie de clínicas instrumentales. Se transmitirán una vez a la semana en el canal 24 de Comcast y también se publicarán en nuestro sitio web montereycountypops.org junto con ejercicios, consejos y otro material impreso descargable. And now enjoy our Oboe episode presented by our principal oboe, Peter Lemberg. Ahora disfruten nuestro episodio de Oboe presentado por nuestro oboísta principal, Peter Lemberg.
My name is Peter Lemberg, and I'm the principal oboist of the Monterey County Pops Orchestra. I started piano lessons at age 5, started flute at age 10, and switched to oboe at age 11. I also played saxophones through college, and then became strictly a professional oboist. I received a Bachelor of Music degree in oboe performance from San Francisco State University, where I studied with Raymond Douste, oboist and English horn in the San Francisco Symphony and Opera Orchestras. Ray also played principal oboe in the Carmel Bach Festival Orchestra from 1957 to 1981. Ray was a great mentor and hero of mine, as were my other later teachers, Mark Lifshey and John Mack. I have played in many orchestras and different playing situations, including the San Francisco Opera Orchestra, where I have played principal oboe a number of times, including some of their national broadcasts. I have also played on 6 Western Opera Theater tours with the touring orchestra of the San Francisco Opera Center for their young artist programs. Each year, we performed 40 shows of an opera in San Francisco and in many cities in the Midwest and on the East Coast. The oboe was originally an outdoor instrument. Shawms, surnas, and other folk instruments, which could be played very loudly. It was adapted for indoor use on the larger and softer sounding 2-keyed Baroque oboe. This instrument had the reeds adapted to be able to play softly and to blend with flutes and stringed instruments. One of the most important players in the history of the oboe is Marcel Tabuteau, who was originally trained in France and came to work in the United States in the 1900s, where he adapted his French reed style to combine the response of French-style reeds with the larger sound of German-style reeds. He played principal oboe for 39 years in the Philadelphia Orchestra and taught many American oboists at the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, as well as privately. All 3 of my teachers I mentioned earlier studied with him and used his reed style and playing methods. Good early instruments for a young player would be a Yamaha model 241 or 441, or Fox models 330 or 333. The Yamaha 441 and the two Fox models feature most of the conservatory system keywork, that is, all the trill keys and substitute keys, in plastic model instruments, which are lighter and easier on a growing young person's hands, in particular the right hand thumb, which takes most of the weight of the instrument. For all oboes, it is important that both joints, top and bottom, seal properly at all times. Let me demonstrate this for you. So I'll wet my middle finger of my right hand, close all the three keys in the top to seal the joint. Place this wet middle finger in sealing the bottom of the joint, and you want to suck all the air out like you're taking a big drink from a straw. And place your tongue on your upper lip on it, and it should seal and take a while to pull off gently and pop like that. The bottom joint is basically done the same way, only with the left hand. I'll wet the palm of my left hand, place it against the bottom, finger a low C and seal the B key on the bottom, and do the same thing. Try to suck the air out and it should seal and then pop when you try to pull it. I have always played on Luray oboes, which are French-made, and good quality used instruments can be found at a less costly price than new instruments, which require an extensive and careful break-in period. Other good models are Howarth, which are made in England, Yamaha, which are Japanese, and Rigata and Marigot, which are also French. There are others. There are well-made reeds available from good quality reed cane, scraped with the American-style Tabito scrape from a number of reed makers who sell reeds to the public, including me. They can be expensive, but for a student starting out, well worth the price. Be aware that less costly reeds are usually not manually scraped with a reed knife, but rather on a profiling machine, and the quality of them greatly varies. There hasn't been a good non-reed caned substitute to date, as oboe reeds are generally too small to be adaptable from plastic or other materials. Bassoon reeds work much better as they are larger. The care of oboe reeds is crucial, as they are very thin and can get easily chipped, altering the response and even ruining the reed completely. It is very important to always store them in a good reed case with holders that keep them from moving around. I am constantly touching up reeds, always with a very sharp reed knife, and constantly making new reeds to play, as they don't last all that long due to being made from plant material, which wears out easily from the acidity in our saliva. I like to soak my reeds in water on the cane part only, up to the beginning of the thread, for no more than 2 to 3 minutes before playing. Otherwise, they can get too open and waterlogged. It is a must to have good quality cleaning swabs on hand. A pull-through silk one with a long string on the back end, in case the swab gets stuck in the joint and needs to be pulled back out by the string, as well as a cloth swab, which is non-pull-through, for cleaning before the instrument goes back in the case. I use turkey feathers for swabbing my wood oboes while playing, mainly because of seeing too many silk swabs of other players get stuck in their instruments. A new player of the oboe really needs to find the right place for their embouchure or mouth position on the reed, which allows for response at all dynamic levels and being able to use the tongue to start and stop notes properly. The tip of the tongue goes on the tip of the reed. If you try to play the reed too far in your mouth, you'll pass up the extra cane left in the middle of the reed called the plateau, which can be your ally in the shaping of your sound. For me, the most important quality about the oboe is that it is not an instrument of volume, but one of projection. It has the most number of higher overtones of any instrument and can easily be heard, even through thicker textures. The basic oboe sound is a piano dolce sound, which we learn to amplify while keeping the basic colorful sound quality and not letting the tone get too bright and one-dimensional. Tabito always stressed being able to begin and end the tone always with the tongue, and with quality and beauty, no bumping or choking off the tone. He likened beginning and ending a phrase to flying an airplane, a smooth takeoff and equally smooth landing at the end without jolting your passengers. Now I would like to show the oboe dynamic and interval warm-ups music. We can take a single tone and tongue smoothly each repetition with dynamics of 1 to 5 and then 5 to 1, always with clean tonguing with all notes on the wind and never altering the pitch by biting too hard on the reed to play softer. Simply keep the embouchure and slow down your wind. You can also play a single note going 1 to 5 and then 5 to 1. You can also play a single note going 1 to 5 and then 5 to 1. You'll quickly note that the wind must always be maintained or the tone will simply stop. I like to think of the wind and constant pressure as a water stream holding up a small ball, even though the pressure is being lessened gradually. You can then continue this exercise by going 1 to 9 and 9 to 1 dynamically. Another very good exercise for control of wind and dynamics is to practice slurred intervals, which are present in all music that we play. Start on any note and tongue 1 to 5. Hold the note forte at 5 and then slur to the next note, whether upward or a downward interval, played subito piano at 1. Listen to yourself. Be your own honest referee and always work for smoothness. Basic techniques are good hand positions and fingering. Curved fingers with the tips of the fingers on top and around the 6 main keys. No wayward pinky fingers. They always need to be around the pinky keys, ready to be played. The first finger left hand on the half-hole key needs simply to be able to rock gently over the half-hole, never lifted up and never slid forward and backward. In general, the less finger movement and finger pressure, the better. For the octave keys, I prefer to have the first octave thumb depressed when using the second octave key as well. By doing this, You're already pressing the first octave key when coming down the instrument. This is part of the semi-automatic octave system. As for breathing, we need to remember that the oboe takes the least amount of air to play of any wind instrument. Our breaths should be no more than the breath that we take for normally speaking a sentence to someone. Too much air inhaled never gets used, and we need to expel it, usually at a bad place in the music. Try breathing most of your air out before you play. You'll be surprised how long you can go on just that small amount of air. Most of the time when we need to breathe in music, we exhale some air through the mouth or the nose instead of inhaling and mistakenly taking too big a breath. As for the tone, always a basic dolce piano sound that is amplified when we want to change our dynamics. Be at the same basic place on the reed and roll the reed in and out on your embouchure, never sliding the reed in and out, and lifting the corners up slightly in your embouchure, they're the strongest points, to help the pitch stay up in the upper register. Make sure that your upper register matches your lower ones, not too sharp and not too flat. Now I would like to demonstrate the opening solo from Bach's Cantata number 202, the Wedding Cantata. Vibrato is learned and lightly applied when a student is further along after a few years of playing and becoming familiar with the ability to play intervals, slurs, etc. Let it become a natural part of playing a phrase for emphasis at certain points, never continually and obtrusively pasted on top of the music. To demonstrate, I'll play this opening solo of Bach's Cantata number 202. Listen to where I add vibrato lightly and for emphasis. Listen to how good singers and other instrumentalists use vibrato sparingly in their music making. Too often, excessive vibrato can cover bad intonation. Now to show articulation, I would like to demonstrate the small excerpt from Haydn's Symphony number 94 to show slurs and articulation. Articulation on the oboe is the use of the wind and the tongue together to be able to play notes of all different lengths depending on the style of the music. Articulation must always be played on the wind, just as we do when slurring. Think of a surfer riding the wave and finishing upright on the surfboard. To demonstrate, I'll play this Haydn Symphony number 94 excerpt solo two different ways. The wind is used exactly the same way for both. First, I'll play it slurred. And now I'll play it articulated staccato, as Haydn originally wrote it. Take note once again that the wind is used exactly the same way for both excerpts. Playing slurs is the ability to play in between the notes. Some people call it the paper on the page, in between the notes, and the ability to continually travel in one's playing. I liken playing slurs to the dot-to-dot pictures we drew as children. The connections we make with our pencil or pen between the dots make a larger picture or musical phrase. Interval practice is extremely important for instrumental and dynamic range. It is also extremely important to develop one's ear for pitch by practicing with drones from your tuner. Set your tuner to sound a lower note and play intervals above it, really listening for the intonation. This is a very good exercise to develop your sense of pitch. Learn to play your upper range in tune with your lower registers. Try to never vary from this. It is also very important to play in tune with your accompaniment, especially when you play with the piano. Giving the tuning A for your group is also extremely important. Be sure to give an A 440, checking on your tuner as you play, and be able to keep that pitch for the course of a rehearsal or concert. It's very hard to do, but try to do it. Be sure not to give a loud one-dimensional tuning box A when you tune. Give the A softly, but with substance and conviction. Have the group first listen to your A and then tune. Beside the ideas about phrasing I mentioned earlier, it is very important to be able to have your sound heard over the group when needed, and to know when to accompany other players' melodies softly. You need a wide range of dynamics and reeds that will play them. When you're playing a melody, be sure to project it to the back of the hall while keeping the substance of your sound. Be able to count your rests correctly and efficiently. The hand finger counting is best, multiples of 5, usually just done on your leg very, very softly. Be sure to do it unobtrusively in concerts, as many are now recorded and filmed. Note that the rests are not for resting. Be sure to prepare your reed and instrument properly for the next entrance while you're counting your rests. And no slurping saliva out of the reed. Like that. Many concerts are now recorded, and any extra sounds are heard. Learn simply to suck the extra saliva out of the reed silently, as if taking a big drink out of a straw. Like that. As for reeds, the crow, with the lips up to the beginning of the string and blowing about a mezzo forte, tells you the health of the reed. It should be a C, you can check it on your tuner, with a lower octave in it. The octave should appear quickly, without having to blow too hard. Anything too sharp or flat will take unhealthy adjustments in your embouchure to try to play in tune, and it can tire you out quickly. It's best to have multiple reeds in your case that can play at any time. Try not to play on one reed for too long. It is much better to play on different reeds in order to gain a more flexible embouchure, which supports the small differences between your reeds. Later on, you may be asked to play English horn, which uses the same basic fingerings, but is a larger instrument. It's pitched in the key of F, sounds a fifth lower. Its larger reeds last longer than oboe reeds. It's a heavier instrument and harder to hold up for longer periods, so I use a neck strap or clip a floor peg to the bell end. The peg fits on this bell end. I started playing some English horn in high school and continued through college and professionally. I get to play some English horn professionally, but not nearly as much as oboe. However, it is a required double in many professional orchestras. The earlier you can learn to adjust reeds and make them, either by study with your teacher or by a reed-making manual, the better off you'll be. This will save you money in the long run from not having to buy finished reeds, and you'll be able to make and adjust reeds according to your embouchure and needs. A good reed-making manual will tell you what materials to use, or your teacher can recommend them to you. Good manuals with detailed instructions and measurements are the David Weber and Fred Capps manual and the manual by J. Light. As for literature, fingering charts are usually available in method books, but the two that I like to have are Martin Schuring's oboe fingering chart and his oboe trill chart, and these come laminated to store easily in your music bag and not get ruined. I prefer to start my young students on the Rubank or the Geckler elementary books. The Barrett oboe method also takes a student through various grades of studies and melodies and is a great source for learning all of the various articulations you'll see in music. Beware that the old photocopied edition, published by Boozy and Hawkes, has a number of printing errors, and your teacher will need to correct these with you in the course of study. The newer Calmus edition, edited by Martin Schuring, is a better printed edition. Pieces that I usually assign are the Handel concertos in B flat and G minor, the Marcello concerto, the Handel sonata in C minor, and other Baroque works. Later in studies, in high school and beyond, are the Saint-Saëns, Hindemith, and Poulenc sonatas. As for websites to find our oboe music, for sale, try sheetmusicplus.com, Trevko Varner Music, and Forrest Music in Berkeley as starters. A Google search will turn up many others. A good free website with oboe chamber music is imslp.com. You can find some of the basic oboe literature mentioned earlier at this site, as well as some of the basic oboe chamber music, the Mozart Oboe Quartet, the Beethoven Two Oboes English Horn Trio, and Mozart variations for the same combination. You can print these at home for your own use. Now I'd like to show my page of great oboists. I tried to listen to Marcel Tabiteau's recordings, though he lived in an age of rather primitive recording methods, which don't often convey all the many facets of his playing. His students, however, made many great recordings. John Delancey, Philadelphia Orchestra Principal Oboe, after Tabiteau, and in the Philadelphia Wind Quintet. John Mack, longtime principal oboe of the Cleveland Orchestra. Mark Lifshee, principal of the Cleveland Orchestra and San Francisco Symphonies. Alfred Genovese, principal oboe of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra and assistant principal oboe of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Harold Gomberg, longtime principal oboe of the New York Philharmonic, and his younger brother, Ralph Gomberg, longtime principal oboe of the Boston Symphony Orchestra and a member of the Boston Symphony Chamber Players. Some of their students, who we can currently hear play, are Frank Rosenwein, principal oboe of the Cleveland Orchestra, Eugene Izotov, principal oboe of the San Francisco Symphony, John Farillo, principal oboe of the Boston Symphony, Liang Wang, principal oboe of the New York Philharmonic, and Catherine Needleman, principal oboe of the Baltimore Symphony. There are many others. Many of their recordings and performances can be found on YouTube and other streaming services, as well as buying them from outlets who sell new and used CDs. Thank you for viewing this presentation about the oboe.